Hey YouTube, it's Evan Edition 34, and this is your top 5 plus a few honorable mentions for Spell Ruler, otherwise known as Magic Ruler for some of you who are really old. But anyway, since the changeover it became Spell Ruler. I had to do 3 honorable mentions for this set, just like a lot of the old sets, it's just got some amazing cards. Number 8, really just an honorable mention though, is Mystical Space Typhoon. It's got the ability to, play it as a surprise, kind of like a trap. It's a set card. If they try to pop it during their turn, you can chain it and hit one of their back rows, which is good. But you also have the flexibility of just being able to draw it and instantly destroy something. And it doesn't care whether it's face up or face down or anything. It just straight up destroys this card, which is awesome. Flexibility, strength, there's nothing else to like about it. It's still well played. It's been limited to 1 for a long time, and now it's finally at 2, at least as of the time I made this video. However, the next card completely blows it out, and you may not necessarily see this as an honorable mention, but Delinquent Duo ranks in next. It's 1,000 life points to pitch 2 cards out of your opponent's hand. It's a devastating first turn play, especially if you win the die roll or what have you, but basically if you're going first that game, it's an amazing, amazing first turn play. You get a random pitch out of their hand to the grave, and then they pitch another card. But if you analyze the card, it's not quite as powerful as it seems. Yes, it rips 2 out of the hand, and yes, it's powerful early. But the later the game goes, oftentimes, the less powerful this card can be. And the random discard is the only one of significant power because they get to choose the second card discarded. So oftentimes, this card can actually backfire on you, especially in formats where, when you consider if this card is legal, think of all the other things that are legal, odds are good your opponent wants something in the grave, and it's probably going to come back to bite you. And since they get to control one of the discards, oftentimes this is really just 1 discard for 1,000 life points, and it's a random discard at that. Whereas, for the next card in line, you can actually pay 1,000 to get any card you want. And that card is Confiscation. Spell Ruler was an amazing card for hand control. Confiscation is a much better card. It's an excellent first turn play as well, just like Duo. This card actually lasted longer than Duo did in terms of being banned or not banned, once again as of when I made this video. And it can be a little bit better late game, just because you get to pick the card out of their hand and discard it, so you can discard a spell or something like that that's not as easy to retrieve. However, moving on up the list, number 5 blows all the other cards on this list away, and that's Giant Trunade. It makes the list here just like Heavy Storm did in Metal Raiders, because it sweeps away all your opponent's back rows, sets you up basically to go kill your opponent that turn. And while it doesn't destroy them permanently, which can in some ways be a downside, like Heavy Storm does, the advantage is it also helps you dodge cards like, say, Stardust Dragon, Musakeni Magatama, destruction negations basically. So in some ways actually, Trunade can be better, but at the end of the day, it just fills that same slot as Cold Wave and Heavy Storm, that it just gets rid of all those back row threats and allows you to just summon a bunch of monsters, go through and win the game in theory. Number 4, ranking over it, is actually Cyberjar. Cyberjar makes this list basically because his devastating card advantage is almost always game-changing. He is one of those cards that looks fair but actually is not. Yes, he does the same thing for both players, but when you consider that he's set, your opponent's either going to 1-for-1 trade him usually just to kill him, in which case you didn't lose anything, or he'll get flipped when they attack it, or if they don't attack it, you get to flip it on your turn, and either way, you'll be the one who gets to see a main phase 1 right before a battle phase in which you get to profit from his effect, unless something weird happens like he gets hit by Swords of Revealing Light. So he's an immensely useful card. He gets you a bunch of free monsters on the field and loads your hand with spells. Amazing, astonishingly powerful. He also oftentimes just black holes your opponent and replaces their stronger monsters with weaker ones off their deck. An incredibly powerful card, no question there. Number 3, Snatch Steal. Just take any face-up monster. And unlike most cards that take monsters from your opponent, Snatch Steal will actually give you the option to keep it. Yeah, it might give your opponent 1,000 life points, but that doesn't really matter when you're considering that you get to keep the monster forever until they MST or something. Long-term stealing isn't necessarily the best, but just stealing a monster from your opponent so easily is basically why this card is so amazing. Like all other stealing monsters from your opponent's cards, it's almost always the hallmark of a very powerful card. And as time goes on and more cards are printed that you could use with it, it just gets better and better and better. However, card number 2 is definitely one of the more powerful cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! I won't say the most, but it is devastatingly powerful, and that's the Forceful Sentry. Oftentimes it's overlooked compared to things like Confiscation and Delinquent Duo, which discard cards. But the graveyard in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a place where you can often put things to use, rather than just actually be losing them. Forceful Sentry charges you no cost of any kind, looks up any card in your opponent's hand, and sends it back to the deck, where it is far less likely to be of use to your opponent. I mean, at the very least, they're probably going to have to search for it again, which means they exhausted a search card to go get it instead of something else in addition to it. So Forceful Sentry is devastatingly powerful, one of the best cards on the ban list, and not likely to come back anytime soon, with good reason. However, the top card on this list is probably the most powerful card ever printed in Yu-Gi-Oh! Not just in this set, but ever printed in Yu-Gi-Oh! And hopefully, for the sake of the game's balance, never again will a card be printed this powerful, or more powerful, God forbid. And that card is Painful Choice, the #1 card in Spell Ruler and probably in the game. Painful Choice is deceptively powerful. In technical card advantage terms, it's an even trade. You play one card, no cost, get a card in your hand. But your opponent chooses it, so it seems like it might not even be that good. But when you consider that so many decks are graveyard-based, and this allows you to stuff your graveyard full of 4 cards, basically you pick your 5, knowing that most or not all of them are going to go to the grave, and you can almost always manipulate which one your opponent's going to give you. It's not hard to imagine. Just the possibilities on this card are endless when you consider things like Flamvels, Light Sworns. I mean, oh gosh, almost every deck really benefits from Painful Choice. It's just an astoundingly good card. Basically consider any deck you can think of and think to yourself, would it be better with Painful Choice? It even helps you set up cards like Pot of Avarice with ease. Like I say, the list just goes on, and I won't bore you with it, but suffice it to say, Painful Choice is most likely the most powerful card ever printed in Yu-Gi-Oh! And easily the best card in Spell Ruler, and that's saying something when you think about it. So anyway, until next time, rate, comment, subscribe, and check out my channel for more cool videos.